Good afternoon. Welcome, grandparents, parents, family, friends, teachers, and fellow students. Welcome to the Yesterday Show. We hope you will enjoy this performance by the third grade as they portray people in history. They've been working very hard. We hope you will learn something new about some of these historical persons. Sit back, enjoy, and thank you for coming. First, we want to welcome to our show President Theodore Roosevelt. Hello, good to have you on our show today. Can you tell us when you were born?
I was born on October 27th, 1858 in New York City, New York.
So what was your favorite pastime?
Boxing. I started when I was 14, but had to stop in 1904 because I got hit so hard I lost sight in my left eye.
Oh my goodness. Wow. How old were you when you became president?
I was 42 years old when I became president after McKinley was assassinated.
Wow, that's very young to become president. What did you do during your presidency?
I am known as the conservation president because I reserved over 200 million acres of land for preservation.
That's a wonderful achievement. Did you have any children?
Yes, I had 7 children, 3 girls, 4 boys. My first child, Alice, was born 2 days before my first wife passed away.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear of your first wife's passing. I'm sure Alice brought great joy in the midst of your sorrow. Thank you for sharing, and we thank you for your service to our country. Next, we want to welcome Miss Clara Barton. Welcome to our show. Can you tell us when you were born?
I was born December 25th, 1821 in Massachusetts. I was one of 5 children. My full name was Clarissa Harlow Barton.
Very good. Wow, born on Christmas Day. What is one of your childhood memories?
My best friend was my brother David. When he was 12, he got hurt when he fell off the barn. I took care of him for 2 years, and that's when I realized I like to care for other people.
Wow, he fell off the barn. My goodness. That's wonderful. You learned how you wanted to care for others. You helped to start schools for children. Why did you quit teaching?
I helped open new schoolhouses in New Jersey so all kids could go to a public free school. When the school opened, they told me I couldn't be the principal. They said it was too hard and not the job for women. I knew I could do the job, but they wouldn't give me a chance. I had to leave because I knew I could do a good job if they gave me a chance.
That's right. I'm sorry to hear you weren't given the chance. Why were you called the angel of the battlefield?
During the Civil War, I would help the hurt soldiers. I would give them food and water, and I would also give them bandages. I would take care of their needs, and I wasn't afraid even though the war is scary.
Wow, you're incredibly brave, and I can see why they called you angel of the battlefield. When did the Red Cross come to the United States?
We were able to bring the American Red Cross to the United States in 1881. We helped the hurt soldiers. We would help the hurt. I was the president of the ARC, the American Red Cross. We would help the hurt soldiers. We would help people in other natural disasters.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for your service to others and for being with us today. We would like to welcome Orville Wright. Welcome to our show. Can you tell us when and where you were born?
I was born in Dayton, Ohio in 1871.
Did you like school?
No, I did not like school even though I was smart. I had an enormous curiosity and energy.
Very good. I heard you were good at fixing things.
Yes, after Wilbur and I got bikes, people started bringing our bikes into the print shop for us to fix them.
Wow, that's great. And what kind of businesses did you start?
I started a print business when I was a teenager.
And what did that lead to? What company did that lead to?
It led to the airplane company.
Very good. And what age did you die and what year?
In 1948, in Dayton, Ohio, I died at the age of 76. I died after 2 heart attacks.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today and for coming on our show. We'd now like to welcome President Thomas Jefferson. Good afternoon. When were you born?
I was born on April 13th, 1843. My father was Peter Jefferson, a self-educated surveyor, and my mother was Jane Randolph.
Very good. What was your career?
I purchased... Oh, wrong question.
That's okay.
I was the 3rd president of the United States. Before that, I was a lawyer and politician, serving as governor of Virginia, U.S. congressman, and U.S. vice president.
Wow, thank you for serving our country. What were some of your career achievements?
I purchased a large piece of land known as the Louisiana Territory. I hired 2 men named William Clark and Meriwether Lewis to explore the great land. And I was also the main author of the Declaration of Independence.
Very good. And where did you live during your presidency?
I lived in Monticello, which was a nice mansion outside Chadwell, Virginia.
That sounds lovely. What did you do after you retired?
I mostly stayed at home and entertained friends. But my last accomplishment was building the University of Virginia in Charlottesville.
Wow, that's great. I'm so glad you enjoyed your retirement years. Thank you for serving our country and coming on our show today. Welcome, Babe Ruth. What is your real name and when did you live?
I was born George Herman Ruth on February 6th, 1895 in Baltimore, Maryland. I lived through World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II.
Very good. You lived through some very hard times. What were some of your greatest accomplishments?
I overcame a tough childhood to become one of the greatest baseball players of all time. I hit the very first home run at the Yankee Stadium and held 54 league records at my retirement.
Wow, that's quite impressive. What positions did you play?
I started out as a pitcher. I pitched with my left hand. That's called being a southpaw. Later in my career, I was an outfielder. Batting was my specialty.
Very good. What teams did you play on?
In the majors, I played for the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. My number was 3, and the Yankees retired my number, so no one could have the same number again.
That's awesome. I heard that you named your bat. What was the name of that bat?
I used one of the heaviest and longest bats in baseball. I called her Darlin.
Very good. Can you turn around and see your jersey? Very nice. Thank you. Thanks for coming on our show today. We'd now like to welcome Blackbeard the Pirates. What was your given name and when did people begin calling you Blackbeard? It's okay.
I can't say anything.
You can pull it down if you want a little bit.
People. This is.
It's on. Go ahead.
People began calling me Blackbeard when
When a captain let go, the captain that you let go, talked about your long,
Blackbeard.
right, very good. After you released him, very good. Where and when were you born?
I was born in
1680.
1680 in Bristol, England.
Very good. And now your given name was Edward Teach, right? Very good. And what made you decide to become a pirate?
In Queen Anne's War, most of the pirateers wanted to become pirates, and I was one of them.
Wow, great. And what did you accomplish in 1717? Did you become captain?
I became captain of the Revenge, and that was the first ship I commanded.
First one you commanded. Very good. And what led to your death?
I was killed in a battle against the Royal Navy near North Carolina.
Wow. So you were only 38 years old. Very young. Thank you for sharing with us today and coming on our show. We'd like to welcome Milton Snavely Hershey. When were you born and what was your childhood like?
I was born on September 13th, 1857, Huggersville, PA. My family was very poor, and we moved multiple times before my parents separated. I wasn't a very good student, so I dropped out of school when I was 12 years old.
Well, I'm sure that was very difficult moving many times and being separate, having your parents separate contributed probably to your school experience, I'm sure. What was your first job?
My first job was wrapping and selling candies at Auror's Ice Cream Garden. I learned how to make sugar candy and taffy. I opened my first shop in Philadelphia in 1876.
Very good. Did you start any other companies?
Yes, I started the Lancaster Caramel Company. I learned how to make the soft, creamy caramels by adding fresh milk from the local farms. I bought machines that made chocolate and started the Hershey Chocolate Company.
Very good. We are all grateful that you started the Hershey Company. Is there a city named after you?
Yes. I sold my caramel company for $1 million and bought 1,200 acres of land for my factory and a town for my workers. The town included houses, schools, a zoo, a library, a post office, a bank, and a park.
Wow, that's very impressive. It was officially named Hershey, PA in 1906. Very good. Did you get married and have children?
I married Catherine Sweeney in 1898. We couldn't have children, so we started the Hershey Industrial School for orphan boys. The boys were given a home and learned trades and skills needed to earn money. In 1915, Kitty got sick and died. In her memory, I gave all the stock in the Hershey Chocolate Company to the orphanage. Soon after my 88th birthday, I got sick with pneumonia and died on October 13th, 1945.
Wow, this is amazing and so servant-like to help those orphan boys. It's wonderful. Thank you for being here and sharing with us today, Mr. Hershey.
All right, we'd like to welcome Dolly Madison to our show. Mrs. Madison, when and where were you born?
My name is Dolly, and I was born in Guilford, North Carolina on May 20th, 1768, to John and Mary Penn, who were Quakers.
And what was it like as you grew up?
It was always very busy because I had lots of siblings, and when I got married, I had 2 children. Later, both my husband and one of my children died due to yellow fever epidemic, so that left me with one child named Penn. I got married again to a man named James Madison.
Okay, and Dolly, what event in your life made you so important?
Well, I don't believe it's every day or night someone gets to say George Washington's portrait, but I did on the night the British burned the White House down during the War of 1812.
Wow, so you were there when the British burned down the White House?
Yes, my husband, James Madison, became 4th President of the United States of America, so we lived in the White House before it was destroyed. We hosted parties, and I was the first to serve ice cream in the White House. I was also the first lady to get an honorary seat in Congress. My favorite flavor of ice cream is oyster, but of course that all changed after the White House was destroyed. Of course, my favorite flavor is still oyster.
Oyster ice cream?
Yes.
Okay. A fire in the White House. How did you have time to get the picture down?
Someone warned us the British were coming. News travels fast. I had men break the frame to get the portrait down. Then we rolled up the canvas and fled. After that, the American Army won the war, and we had the White House rebuilt.
Thank you, Mrs. Madison, for your service as a White House First Lady. We'd like to welcome Abigail Adams. Mrs. Adams, where were you born?
I was born in November 22, 1744 in Weymouth, Massachusetts.
Okay, and who did you marry?
I married John Adams, who is the 2nd President of the United States.
Wow, married a president. Okay. How many children did you have?
I gave birth to 6 children. I am the mother of John Quincy Adams, who is the 6th President of the United States.
Wow, you married a president and then you had a president. Very cool. What are you most known for in your lifetime?
I am most known for writing thousands of letters to my husband and Martha Washington.
Okay, and you were also the 2nd First Lady of the United States, is that right?
Yes.
It is, all right. And then how old were you when you died, Mrs. Adams?
I was 73 years old.
Okay, thank you for your service as a White House First Lady. I'd like to welcome Harriet Tubman. Ms. Tubman, thank you for coming on our show. I'm wondering when and where you were born.
I don't exactly know when and where I was born, but I know I was born in Dorchester County, Maryland, between 1820 and 1822.
Okay. I noticed that you have a scar on your forehead. I was wondering how you got that scar.
I was at the village store when one of Mr. Barrett's slaves came running in to hide. The overseer found him and chased after him. I stood in the way so the slave could run away. The overseer threw a 2-pound weight at him, but instead it hit me in the head and it hurt very badly.
Oh, I bet. Way to be a person that was helpful and you ended up getting hurt, but thank you for doing that for that slave. How did you escape to freedom?
With the help of many Quakers and other good people, I made it to Pennsylvania. Once I crossed the Mason-Dixon line, I was a free woman, but I had to walk about 90 miles.
90 miles. Wow. How many slaves did you lead to freedom?
I led over 300 slaves to freedom. The path was called the Underground Railroad. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger.
I love that. When did you die, Miss Tubman?
I died March 10th, 1913, in Auburn, New York. I lived to be about 91 years old, and my last words were, "I go to prepare a place for you."
Thank you, Miss Tubman, for all your hard work with the Underground Railroad. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate you coming on today. Thank you. I'd like to welcome Sacagawea. Welcome to our show, Sacagawea. When were you born?
I was born in 1788 at Lamhi County, Idaho.
Okay. I heard that you were really good at gathering food. What kinds of food did you like to gather?
Yes, I gathered wild licorice, prairie turnips, and wild artichokes.
Oh, wow. Were you ever captured by any tribes?
Yes, I was captured by the Hidatsa tribe in the 1800s during a buffalo hunt.
A buffalo hunt. That sounds like fun. And how old were you when you went on the expedition with Lewis and Clark?
I was 16 years old when I went on the expedition.
Okay. And when and where did you die?
I died in 1812 at Bismarck, South Dakota when I was 25 years old.
All right. Thank you very much for your help with the Lewis and Clark's expedition. We appreciate that. Thanks for coming on our show. We'd like to welcome Mary Pickersgill. Welcome. When and where were you born, Miss Pickersgill?
I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on February 12, 1776.
Okay, and I heard that you are a really good seamstress. Where did you learn to sew?
I learned from my mother, Rebecca Young. She was a widow since I was 2 and also in a flag shop on Walnut Street. She also made blankets and uniforms during the Revolutionary War.
Oh, wow. I heard that you were asked to make a flag. Who was it that asked you to make this famous flag?
Major George Armistead asked me to make it. He felt that Fort McHenry was ready to defend against the attack, except it did not have a flag. He wanted the flag to be so large that the British could see it from a far distance.
Oh, wow. A flag for Fort McHenry. That's really cool. How large was the flag that you made?
I actually made 2 flags, but my main flag was 30 by 42 feet. It weighed about 50 pounds and took 11 men to raise it onto a 90-foot flagpole. It took about 6 weeks to make.
Wow. It's a big flag. If I wanted to see that flag now, where could I go see it?
After a lot of fixing up, because it was shoved in a small case with moth-setted the fabric and snipped for souvenirs, after a lot of fixing up, you can now see my flag in the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History.
Wow. That'd be really cool to see. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for making that flag for us. I would like to welcome Miss Amelia Earhart. Miss Earhart, can you tell me what you were like as a little girl?
I like to throw mud balls, jump over fences, play baseball and football. I didn't like to wear dresses like other girls.
I heard that President Hoover gave you a gold medal. Why is that?
Because I was the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean alone.
Oh, wow. Alone, that had to be scary. I also heard that you had your plane a certain color. Why was that?
My airplane, the Friendship, was painted orange in case I crashed. That way it would be easier to see.
Oh, wow. Okay. What happened when you tried to fly around the world?
I disappeared and was never found again. I was declared dead.
All right, and what do you think you're most remembered for?
I am remembered for my flying skills and courage. I was brave and did things women had never done before.
Well, thank you very much, Amelia, for doing that brave thing for the rest of the world. I would like to welcome Mr. Albert Einstein. Mr. Einstein, when were you born?
I was born on March 14th, 1879 in Ulm, Germany.
Oh, Ulm, Germany. Very cool. Did you like school as a boy?
No, I did not like school, No, I did not like school. I was very smart. I did not like the way teachers taught me.
I'm wondering if you were a religious man.
No, I was not. Boaz wants us to be the president of Israel. I did not accept.
President of Israel, okay. When did you start to like science?
I was a young boy. I got very sick. My father gave me a compass to play with and made me feel better. It started then.
Okay, so playing with something that was kind of scientific wanted you to be a little bit more scientific. I like it. And did you ever invent anything?
Yes, I co-invented the refrigerator that worked with compressed gases.
Oh, we appreciate you inventing the refrigerator. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming on our show, Mr. Einstein.
We'd now like to welcome Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt to our show. Good afternoon, Mrs. Roosevelt. Can you tell us when you were born and a bit about your upbringing?
I was born in New York City in 1884. I lived with my mother, father, and 2 brothers until I was 9. At the age of, I went to live with my grandmother. At the age of 15, I was sent to a boarding school in England.
Very good. And what did you believe is one of the most important things you did to further women's equal rights in the workplace?
Before my husband, FDR, was president, female journalists were excluded from White House press conferences. I hosted a series of female-only White House press conferences. Male reporters were not allowed to go to attend these. That means that newspapers had to hire female journalists or miss out on White House press conferences.
Wow. So newspapers had to hire female reporters, right, or miss out. That's great, the stand that you took for women there. Mrs. Roosevelt, in your quest for civil rights, it's mentioned that you publicly defied certain states' laws on segregation. Can you tell us an example?
I was at a conference in Birmingham, Alabama. I simply wanted to sit next to my friend who happened to be African American. I was told by an official that I was not allowed to sit next to a black. I asked the official to please measure the distance between the whites and the blacks area. I sat right in the middle. I truly believe that they were just too afraid to arrest me.
Wow. I loved that you said the official was pleased they measured the distance between the black and white sections and you sat right in the middle. I like your boldness there. After your husband, President Franklin Roosevelt, passed away, did you stop working toward human rights causes?
Absolutely not. In fact, President Truman asked me to join the United Nations. I helped write the Declaration of Human Rights. This document stated how all humans deserved equal rights.
Very good. And still in effect today. That's wonderful. And Mrs. Roosevelt, how old were you when you passed away?
1 month after my 78th birthday, I asked my friends to plan a party for me. By my request, I asked them to only invite children to the party. I died in my sleep I can't remember when it was.
You died in your sleep, very peaceful. Wow, you seem very fun. I like that you just wanted to invite children to your birthday party. And such a fun, bold woman. Thank you for your contributions to further women's rights. Welcome, President John Adams. President Adams, when you were a child, did you like school?
I did not like school. I would rather hunt and fish. I wanted to be a farmer like my father.
Can you say that one more time?
I did not like school. I would rather hunt and fish. I wanted to be a farmer like my father.
Very good. You wanted to be a farmer like your father. Very good. So did you become a farmer when you grew up?
No. I graduated from Harvard College and became a lawyer. I also married Abigail and had 6 children.
Wow, very good. What did you think about the American colonies forming a new country?
At first I wasn't sure, but I decided that a new country was a good idea. I helped write the Declaration of Independence in 1776.
That's wonderful. And what did you think was the most important part of the American government?
A balance of power between the executive, judicial, and legislative branches, but there does need to be a strong president.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Did you run to become president?
I was the first vice president and the second president of the United States. I was the first to live in the White House.
Wow, that's what a neat privilege. Thank you for your service to our country and for coming on our show today. We now want to welcome Rosa Parks. Welcome, Mrs. Parks. When and where were you born?
I was born on February 4th, 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama. I was raised in Pine Level, Alabama.
And how were you treated by most white people when you were young?
They threw rocks at me. They tried to start fires at my house. We couldn't use the same water fountain, go to the same school, or ride the same bus.
How terrifying and sad. That's awful. How did you get the job in 1941 as a secretary at an Army Air Force base?
President Roosevelt allowed all blacks and whites to work together on all U.S. military bases.
Very good. We thank President Roosevelt for that decision. What did you have to go through to be able to vote?
It was really hard for a black female to become a voter. They only gave black people a test. It was really hard. It took me 3 times to pass it. They charged me a poll tax of $16.50.
Wow, that's a lot back then. How did you start creating change for black people on the bus in December 1955?
I was on the bus and the white people were standing. The bus driver yelled at me and said, "Get up." I said, "No." He said, "I'm going to call the police and you're going to be arrested." I said, "Okay, do what you need to do." He called the police and I got put to jail for not giving my seat to a white person.
Wow, we commend you for your boldness and knowing your worth. We are all equal and made in God's image. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being with us today. We welcome Mrs. Betsy Ross. Welcome to our show. Can you tell us when you were born?
I was born 1752, Philadelphia, PA.
Did you like school?
Yes, I liked reading, math, and I learned to sew.
Very good. What was the most exciting part of your life?
When George Washington asked me to make the first U.S. flag.
Very good. And what was exciting about it?
Because I was able to make the first American flag.
Okay. And when did you die?
I died at the age of 84. I died in my sleep January 30th, 1836 in Philadelphia.
Well, very peaceful passing. Thank you so much for sharing and being with us today. Welcome, Mr. William Clark. Good afternoon, Mr. Clark. Can you tell us when you were born?
I was born August 1st, 1770 in Virginia.
Very good. And what are you famous for? What did you explore?
I explored the Louisiana Purchase for President Thomas Jefferson, and he asked me because I was an American soldier and explorer.
And who did you travel with?
I traveled with Meriwether Lewis, a map maker, and Sacagawea, who also helped lead the expedition over the Rocky Mountains.
Very good. Some of your friends here today. And what did you accomplish?
I accomplished making journals about the plants and animals we encountered on our expedition. We've mapped away to the Pacific Ocean.
Wow. And when did you die?
I died September 1st, 1838 in St. Louis, Missouri from unknown causes.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing and coming on our show today. We now would like to welcome to our show Anne Frank. Good afternoon, Miss Frank. When you were born,
I was
Sorry, can you tell us when you were born?
I was born on June 12, 1929, in Frankfurt, Germany.
Very good. And what was your favorite subject?
My favorite subject was history. Why? Because I liked observing people and learning about people.
Very nice. And what did you like to do while hiding?
I enjoyed writing in my diary that I got for my 13th birthday. I documented my life in hiding from 1942 to 1944 during the German occupation of the Netherlands.
Wow, I imagine it brought some peace or comfort having a place to share your thoughts and feelings. What concentration camp did you go to, Mrs. Frank?
After my family's arrest, my sister and I went to the Bergen-Belsen camp in northern Germany.
And when did you die, Anne?
I died at a young age of 15 on March 1st, 1945, in a concentration camp. My dad was the only survivor. He decided to fulfill my wish and published my diary in 1947.
Wow, it's so heartbreaking to have passed at such a young age and all you experienced in the concentration camp. We're glad that your dad was able to publish your diary so that we could learn more about your life. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Welcome, Amelia Earhart. Good afternoon, Miss Earhart. When were you born?
I was born on July 24th, 1897, in my grandmother's house in Atchison, Kansas. I was named after both my grandmothers.
That's very special. What did you like to do for fun when you were a child?
I always liked to go fast. After my sister and I saw a roller coaster at the World's Fair, we built a ramp off the top of the shed, and I was the first to slide down.
Wow, sounds like you were up for an adventure all the time. That's exciting. When and where did you see your first airplane?
It was 1909, the summer before 8th grade, when we saw the airplane fly at the Iowa State Fair.
Very good. What was it like to fly across the Atlantic by yourself?
There were a lot more challenges than I thought there would be. If I went too high, ice would build up on my wings, but if I went too low, the instruments wouldn't work. I knew I had to stay right in the middle.
Right, and tell me about the gas started dripping down your neck?
The gas started dripping down my neck, and I knew I just had to keep going.
And you just kept going. Wow, I can't imagine those challenges. Way to press on. What is the next flying challenge that you would want to take on?
I want to fly around the world closer to the equator than anybody ever has. This path would take me across North America, South America, the Atlantic Ocean, Africa, Asia, Australia, and the Pacific Ocean.
Wow, this would truly be amazing. You are so courageous. Thank you for being with us and sharing about yourself today. Welcome to our show, Mrs. Eliza Hamilton. Good afternoon. Can you tell us when you were born, Mrs. Hamilton?
I was born August 9th, 1757 in Albany, New York.
And what were your skills as a child?
My skills were needlework, playing the piano, and learning French and Dutch.
Very good. And who did you marry?
I married Alexander Hamilton, who was the United States Secretary of Treasury. We had 8 children.
Wow, very good. What was one of your greatest accomplishments?
In 1806, I co-founded the Orphan Asylum Society in New York City, which is a school and orphanage for children. I served there as director for 27 years. The orphanage is still there today.
Wow, that's so impressive. What a remarkable accomplishment. You also helped with some fundraising efforts. Can you tell me about that?
After I moved to Washington, D.C., I helped Dolly Madison and Lucia Adams help raise money to build the Washington Monument.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing and being with us today.
All right, we would like to welcome Orville Wright to our show today. Mr. Wright, when and where were you born?
I was born in Dayton, Ohio, 1871. I was the fourth of four boys, and our sister was born later as 3.
And what was it like in the Wright family?
We moved a lot because of our father's calling. He was a bishop in the Brethren Church. We were very close, and our parents were very loving. Our mother was our teacher. She was a mathematician and stressed education and learning, but we had many books available to us.
Excellent. Sounds like a smart mama. What was your inspiration for the fascination with flying?
On one of our father's many travels for the church, he brought home a special toy for my brother Wilbur and me. It was a flying bat toy. We played with it so much it broke, but we figured out how to fix it. From then on, we were hooked on flying.
Wow, you were good with fixing things. I like that. How did the Wright brothers figure out how to fly when so many others could not?
Wilbur loved to birdwatch. He noticed when the bird raised the tip of one wing, it lowered the other. It was kind of like riding a bike. You used the handlebars to turn, but you were so lean. That was all the discovery needed. Wilbur called this wing warping.
Wing warping. All right. What do you consider to be your most important accomplishments?
We did many things and had many business endeavors. I built kites and sold them at age 10. We had a printing press business and a bike shop. We built our own bikes. However, on December 17th, 1903, in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, I flew the first flight of the Wright Flyer. It was the first manned airplane with a motor. I stayed in the air for 12 seconds and traveled 120 feet. That was only the beginning. My brother Wilbur and I are today considered great inventors and the fathers of modern aviation.
We certainly appreciate all your work with the airplanes that you did so that we could enjoy that today. Thank you, Mr. Wright. I would like to welcome to our show Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth, when and where were you born?
I was born on September 7th, 1533, in Greenwich, England. The final monarch of the famous Tudor dynasty, my father was King Henry VIII. My mother, Anne Boleyn, was executed for treason when I was only 3 years old.
How did you become the Queen of England?
After my father and brother passed away, my half-sister Mary became queen. She suspected me of plotting against her and had me locked up. A few months later, I became queen after she passed away.
Wow, that had to be kind of a crazy family situation. What was one of your first major actions as queen?
I formed a new Protestant church, which became the new Church of England. I ruled for 44 years and set into action many laws that are still present today. As a woman in man's world, I had to be strong, intelligent, willed, and witty.
Excellent. I'm wondering, why did you never marry?
My love was kept for my country and the finer things in life. I loved candy violets and beautiful dresses. My entire entourage required 400 wagons to transport my things when traveling.
400 wagons to transport your things? My goodness. And were you involved in any battles while you were queen?
Spain intended to overthrow me by sending me an armada of 130 ships. This sent England into a golden... We defeated their great navy and caused our nation's pride to soar. This sent England into a golden era known as the Elizabethan Age.
We appreciate all you did as queen. Thank you very much for joining us on our show today. I would like to call to our show Mr. Paul Revere. Mr. Revere, when were you born?
I was born in 1734 in Boston, Massachusetts, which was the largest city at that time. 7,000 people lived there.
Wow. What year did you graduate from high school?
I didn't graduate high school because I dropped out of school when I was 13. When I dropped out of school, I worked at my father's workshop.
Wow, I'm sure your father appreciated you being so helpful in his workshop. When you got married, did you have any kids?
Yes, I was married first in 1757 and overall had 16 kids with 2 different wives.
Did you say 16? Busy man. All right. What are you most known for?
When I was young, people in my city were upset about the taxes and the government and started a war. I was most known for riding a horse and using a church lantern and yelling that the British were coming.
All right. And then what did you end up doing later on in your life?
I spent time restoring my family's shop and making church bells.
Sounds very interesting. Well, we appreciate all you did to help our country. Thank you, Mr. Revere. All right, we would like to call to our show Clara Barton. Miss Barton, when were you born?
I was born on December 25th, 1821 in North Oxford, Massachusetts. I was the youngest of 5 children. I had a lisp as a little girl, which made me very shy and not want to talk much, but I ended up growing out of it.
Do you have any memories from when you were a little girl?
I have a terrible memory of when I was either 11 or 12. My brother David fell while he was in our barn working. The doctors didn't have much hope and kept on telling my mom and dad it was doubtful he would ever walk again. I didn't care what the doctors said, though, and I helped David for the next 2 years. Praise the Lord, after those 2 years, David could walk again. I really think that those 2 years helped me realize how much I like helping people.
Wow, so much so that you decided to become a nurse. Besides being a nurse, did you have any other jobs?
When I was a teenager, I started teaching summer school. I really enjoyed helping the younger students. A few years later, the school asked me to become a full-time teacher.
Oh, wow, teacher and a nurse, I like it. Did you ever see any of your students after you stopped teaching?
My dear, it was awful. Just after the Civil War broke out, Northern troops were marching through D.C. They got attacked by Southern troops. I was horrified to find out that some of those Northern troops were my former students. I couldn't help but think of my brother David, and I did everything I could to help them as they recovered.
Wow, that had to be heartbreaking. What did you do after the Civil War?
During the war, I went from battle to battle. After the war, while I was traveling in Europe, I learned of an organization called the International Red Cross. They also helped wounded soldiers. When I got back to the States, I did everything I could to bring that organization to America. I believe it was 1881 when I succeeded, and I founded the American Red Cross. I served as president for it for 23 years.
Wow, and it's still going strong today. We appreciate all your efforts for bringing that back to America, and thank you for joining us on our show. I would like to welcome Alexander the Great. Mr. Alexander, how old were you when you became king?
I became king of Macedonia at the age of 20. I ruled for less than 13 years, but changed the course of history during that time.
Mr. Alexander, can you scoot a little closer to the mic for us? Thank you. How exactly did you change the course of history?
Being one of the greatest military generals ever, I conquered many lands and created a huge empire, and my Greek culture was widespread.
And did you ever lose a battle?
No.
Never lost a battle, wow. During your times of conquest, did you ever have any close calls?
Yes, I was injured many times. Once an arrow struck through my chest. I was carried back of the shield, and my men slowly removed the arrow. I survived and went on to conquer more lands.
Wow, struck through the chest. You conquered many cities, and usually you named them after yourself, but one city you named differently. Why is that?
It was the name of my favorite horse, Bucephalus, who was mortally injured during the battle for that city.
All right, and what was so special about this horse, Bucephalus?
He was very difficult to ride. My father, the king, couldn't even ride him. I was very stubborn and persistent in wanting to ride him. Everyone was telling me it was too dangerous. I went over, got lightly onto the horse. Finally, I broke him in and became my favorite horse.
Excellent. Well, that must have been really cool to be able to break him in. We really appreciate all that you did in your long time ago of being the king. So thank you very much for being on our show with us today. All right, and finally, we would like to welcome Mr. Abraham Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln, welcome. What year were you born?
I was born on February 12th, 1809, near Hodgenville, Kentucky. I was born in a log cabin.
Oh, log cabin, cool. What were your parents' names?
My parents' names were Nancy Hanks and Thomas Lincoln. My mother died when I was young, and my father remarried. My stepmother's name was Sarah Bush Johnston.
Oh, that had to be difficult. Did you like school as a kid?
I had very little formal education. I decided to study law as an adult, and in 1836 I became a lawyer. So, yes, I liked to learn, but I did not have the chance to go to school like people do now.
Okay. And what political party did you first join when running for office?
I was elected onto the Whig Party in Illinois.
Okay, the Whig Party. Very cool. And then what happened that led to your death?
I was shot or assassinated while watching a play in the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. I died the next day on April 15th, 1865.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate all you did for our country. Thank you for joining our show. Okay, and that concludes our show for today. We thank you so much for all the support you've shown. The kids have worked so hard getting ready for this. So we appreciate you coming out and supporting us and showing them your support. So if you want to take some pictures, we're going to have the students come up here and you can take pictures if you would like to at this time. So thank you very much.